The best way for me to describe what I believe is happening in the work of performance marketers, those of us at CTC, is less button pushing overall and more strategy, which is a really fun place to be.
This episode of the e-commerce playbook is brought to you by Mercury. Here at Common Thread Collective, we know that cash flow is everything, especially right now. That's why we always recommend that our clients use Mercury to manage their banking, capital, and cards all from one place. Mercury lets you receive funds, generate invoices, and send free international and domestic wires in US dollars. Mercury also gives you instant access to virtual credit cards and 1.5% cash back across all your spend. Plus, if you need inventory or advertising, try Mercury's founder-friendly capital. Mercury brings all the ways you use money into one product that feels extraordinary to use. Deposit $5,000 or spend $5,000 using your Mercury credit card within your first 90 days to earn $250, or do both for $500 in total rewards. Just go to mercury.com/CTC to give it a try with no minimum deposits. That's mercury.com/CTC. Mercury is a technology company, not a bank. Check show notes for details. Hey folks, welcome to the e-commerce playbook podcast. I'm your host, Richard Gaffin, Director of Digital Product Strategy here at Common Thread Collective. And I'm joined this week, as I've been joined a couple times over the last couple of weeks, by our VP of Paid Media, Mr. Tony Chopp, the Chopper himself. Tony, what's going on, man?
Good morning, Richard. Doing well. Nice to see you again.
Oh, likewise, of course. It's always good to see you, Tony. So what we want to talk about today is a trip you were on recently, not to Costa Rica, where you just came back from, where you were surfing, but beginning of this month, I believe, you took a trip up to the Meta Performance Summit to get a sense of kind of what changes are coming in Meta, what's being rolled out, what's down the pipeline, and kind of importantly, what Meta seems to think is important as it develops its product over the next year or so. So what we wanted to do is give you kind of an on-the-ground report from Tony on what went down at the Meta Performance Summit, and specifically kind of what some of the big takeaways were. So Tony, I'll turn it right over to you. Talk to us a little bit about the Performance Summit and jump into some of your talking points.
Yeah, sure. So it was earlier this month. I believe it was the 6th. Meta hosted their 5th annual Performance Marketing Summit, which is their opportunity to talk about the direction of the platform, what they see as important, what they see, what they're seeing working. And it's a really exciting opportunity for me and for CTC to be able to understand. I think the direction of the platform is really important because it helps us understand the best ways for us to build our tools and our systems to be as aligned as possible to produce the best outcome. And I think a lot of what was covered in the summit was not necessarily, it didn't feel like groundbreaking or transformational in the sense that these are a lot of things that we've been talking about here at CTC for the better part of a year or year and a half, the introduction of AI, the importance of creative. So lots of things that are doubling down were coming out of the Performance Summit, but there were some really interesting takeaways that I think will be fun to tease out a little bit more and talk about how they relate to CTC's tools like Statless and some of the newer stuff that we're building.
Cool. All right. Well, so let's start teasing some of those out. So maybe we could start with like, what was the most surprising of the things that you learned?
Yeah. So I think the most surprising thing that I heard was, maybe said another way, how many times I heard the word incrementality from the folks on stage. And so this represents a really big shift for the media platforms, Meta. And it's interesting to note that I was at the Google Marketing Live Summit several weeks before, which is the similar thing for the Google Ads platform. And it was a very similar trend over there as well. And what this is telling me or showing me is the media platforms are interested in measurement that is more aligned with the way that we think about measurement. And said another way, like actual business impact, as opposed to sometimes I've been critical of the media platforms reporting over the years because I think the best way to say it is they're sort of grading their own homework when they report on conversion value. So I think that's really surprising, and it actually connects to one of the real big takeaways from the summit, which is AI becoming less of a black box and becoming more and more customizable. And by customizable, I mean more opportunity for us to send more signal into the platforms and then allow the optimization and the targeting mechanisms to work with that signal. So it's kind of like a move from, you know, ASC for everybody
Mm.
to AI systems that we can tune with profit signals or with LTV signals, um, or with Meta's new incremental attribution setting with true incrementality.
Mhm.
And all of this leading to, what I think is the best way for me to describe what I believe is happening in the work of performance marketers, those of us at CTC, is less button pushing overall and more strategy, which is a really fun place to be.
Yeah. So you mentioned a little bit about the flexibility maybe of the tools. Like, so is what you're describing that there's going to be increased customizability in terms of like what you have the algorithm going after for you. You mentioned LTV, you mentioned profitability. Yeah, what did you learn along those lines?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the right way to say it. Increased articulation might
Mm,
be a good word to use. So I think bidding for profit is a really good example of how, as a business, we can send a signal into Meta about profit at the SKU level, and then let the optimization engines work with that signal.
mm,
So for many of our clients, some of our clients have a small set of SKUs and their margins are pretty similar across that set of SKU, and it's not as relevant in that case. But for many of our clients, especially with large SKU portfolios, or even with small SKU portfolios, really big differences in margins between product, that that information is really critical for us to be able to give the algorithm, give the optimization engines the information needed to help us produce the outcome that we're seeking. And keep in mind, this whole game is,
mm.
at the end of the day, it's really simple. We put money in, we want to get money out,
Yep.
uh, uh, aka profit or contribution margin. In defining, just ROAS is in some cases an incomplete. And we've done all sorts of things over the years to try to account for that
Hmm.
when we think about setting cost caps against an AOV or against a margin of a product. And at points in the past, it's created a lot of complexity, a lot of manual setup work for us.
Hmm.
Think about if you're using a cost cap bidding and you have, I don't know, 10 SKUs, and some of them are 20% margin and some of them are 60% margin. Well, effectively you would need different campaigns, or at least ad sets,
Hmm.
to be able to set the bids differently in that scenario. So yeah, I think this idea of like customizing the input signal connects to a general theme of consolidating our campaigns as much as possible, and a, a general theme of providing the best possible signal so that we can reach the best possible outcome.
Right. I think it's interesting. Sorry, the point you're just making around like a lot of our so-called CTC approach to media buying or whatever has basically been a series of workarounds to make up for the fact that the platform just doesn't provide the tools that we need to get the results or to measure the results that we want to measure or to optimize towards them or whatever. And I think part of what we're saying here is that like Meta is finally moving the product in the direction where some of those sort of tricks aren't needed anymore, so to speak. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, I think it's a really fun way of saying it, like
Yeah.
workarounds.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And there's another example of that, which is, for the last year, or I don't know, times like a flat circle here.
Sure.
We've been talking about incrementality, right? And we've built a incrementality testing tool into Statless, and we talk about geo holdout incrementality tests as the gold standard of how we measure media's impact on a business, and it remains true for sure. At the same time, Meta is building a tool with this incremental attribution optimization setting that you and I have talked about with McKay in the last several podcasts. That is just so fascinating and interesting to me,
Mhm.
because doing geo holdout tests it's the best solution that we have, and yet still there's some challenges with it. And a couple of the challenges that we discussed last time we were on the podcast, it's a point in time measurement. So we take a snapshot of incrementality at a point in time, which doesn't consider seasonality or changes in budget or all sorts of variables that we could add into the equation. Well, with this new incremental attribution product, it's basically, in essence, always on incrementality testing, continuously running basically a split test under the hood of exposed to the media, not exposed to the media. And things like that. Like, let me connect all these ideas for you. So back to your point about like workarounds. So an example of a workaround is having a separate campaign for acquisition for new customer and a separate campaign for retention. And the reason why is because the incremental contribution of those two cohorts of customers is going to be different. And as a result of that, those two groups of customers need to perform at a different efficiency target. So maybe you take a 2-to-1 on your acquisition, but you need a 3 or a 4-to-1 on your retention campaigns, which the workaround then becomes separate campaigns, separate targeting, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I think the promise of this incremental attribution product is to actually not have to do that, to run the campaign and to say we are seeking this incremental outcome, regardless of if it's somebody that's bought a t-shirt from us in the past or not. We need to have this much margin on every order. Off you go, Meta. Help us understand, by running these ads to these cohorts of customers and these audiences, help us understand how to create that. So it's more steps on this pathway of, like, the idea of a workaround is a really fun way of thinking about it. I appreciate you saying that. More steps on the pathway of less time having to try to manipulate the platform, and more time spent defining what winning looks like. What does it look like to win from a unit economic perspective of whatever it is you're selling.
Trusted by more than 200,000 startups, small businesses, and e-commerce companies, plus many of our clients here at CTC, Mercury gives you the ability to manage your banking, capital, and cards all from one place. E-commerce Playbook podcast listeners get $250 by depositing $5,000 or spending $5,000 using the Mercury credit card within your first 90 days, or do both for $500 at mercury.com/CTC. Mercury is a technology company, not a bank. Check show notes for details. Right, that makes sense. Okay, so obviously the point we've just been talking about is incrementality, but I know you had a few more kind of takeaways from the Performance Summit. So let's jump into those. We can come back to this later if you want to, but let's jump into the next few things you learned.
Yeah, I mean, not new news here, but creative volume and variety and velocity are mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
They talked a lot about partnership ads and how significantly they're outperforming traditional ads. There's quite a bit of talk about generative AI creative tools improving ROAS. And I think the way that I might say this is, I believe Meta wants to solve the creative supply chain issue. And I think it's the right move. It's so much of what we talk about at CTC here, and I know for some time now we've been talking about our creator content offering at CTC and helping produce this type of creative for our clients, and we're seeing fantastic results from that offering. And
Mhm.
I think they talked quite a bit about the impact of sort of UGC style creative going into accounts that don't already have that. And it's the exact same thing that we're seeing in our portfolio. If that style of creative isn't something that you're currently doing, um, it's gonna make a huge impact for you. Yeah, and more standard stuff like a mix of formats, reels, stories, catalog, UGC is really important. They talked about using creators from different affinity clusters, so different types of people will inevitably connect with different types of audiences. And I think, this all of this really, this idea of creative volume and variety and velocity being mandatory has been true for years. And at the same time, it's becoming even more important,
Right.
especially around the recent algorithm updates, the Andromeda updates at the end of last year. I think the easiest way to think about the Andromeda update is, Meta is aware intimately of what the creative is, who is in it,
Mm.
the product that's being featured, the messaging. And we got some interesting specifics about how Andromeda is actually evaluating creative that will be really useful to share, Richard. So
Okay.
I'm going to dig that up and get that for our admission members. But yeah,
So
there's just no way to win. There's no way to win in Meta
right.
without having volume, variety, and velocity on the creative side.
Yeah. And I would be remiss, by the way. We don't usually do this, but I'm going to do a mid-episode plug here for our UGC production workshop that Adrienne, who runs our content creator program, is putting together. We're going to kind of reveal her secrets to generating UGC at volume, because as Tony just mentioned, having that type of ad available in your account at scale is extremely important. And it sounds like basically it's never been more important than it is right now. So by the time you hear this, it will be tomorrow, Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific time. But of course, if you can't make that time, the replay, if you purchase a ticket, you will get the replay regardless of whether you attended or not. So I just have to get that out of the way. Wednesday, June the 25th, join us for the UGC production workshop and start making this happen. Now, let's go back to what you're talking about around some of the specifics. So this is particularly like what the algorithm reads as differentiated,
Yeah.
or what are the other kind of details?
Yeah, exactly. What the algorithm reads is differentiated. Yeah. Yeah. So specifically, like I'll give you some for examples. Like, are there people in the advertisement or not? Is the language promotional? Is it an offer? Is it one product that's featured or multiple? So, and there was a there's been a bunch of different ideas around this, like how to define differentiated. But one of the coolest ones that I've heard so far is, if you were to, they talked about this last time we were on the podcast. If you were to look at the ads and hold them like far away from your face,
Mm, yeah.
can you tell the difference? So, moving the call to action from the top to the bottom, it doesn't count. It doesn't count as differentiated. But having an advertisement, a UGC style advertisement, compared to, product shot, like product on white, for example, or product on background, or product in lifestyle, those are going to be differentiated for sure. So, and I think this isn't something that I heard, but it's something I'm dreaming up.
Okay. Sure.
Um, So we're getting, and this is also like new directional stuff that CTC is building. We're building a lot of tooling for our media team off the Meta Ads API. And one of the things that we're able to access through the Meta Ads API is creative fatigue. And so part of what we're planning to incorporate into Statless is creative fatigue information at the campaign level to help us inform, okay, we need something new for this specific campaign. Now, what I didn't hear, but I think is likely, or in fact possible, is some sort of metric or some sort of reporting out of the platform about the diversity of the creative. Are we actually feeding Meta what it's requesting? And right now there isn't anything that we can analytically point our finger to. So, but yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. Okay, so incrementality, it was our first one. Create a volume, variety, velocity is our second. Let's keep rolling down the list. So what else popped out?
Yeah, I mean, the first point is really like the tuning of the AI, and incrementality is a piece of it, and
Right.
LTV or profit. I think the sort of doubling down on the third point is like measurement, just marching towards incrementality in general. And what I would say is Meta is pushing beyond the measuring of just clicks, right? And into sort of always on lift studies. And they talked a little bit about like okay, so here's sort of an interesting takeaway. So we're in the main stage room area,
Mhm.
and talking about, okay, by a show of hands, how many people would say they've fully operationalized incrementality into their media planning and operations? Less than 5% of the room
Hmm.
held their hand up. So
Interesting.
now this felt like really disconnected for me because it's been so important, such a topic for us for some time now. But I think that's the reality of where the market is. And I think for a lot of brands, it's maybe possibly intimidating, or it can be. I think there's costs to deploy the various tools to go about it. And many more people are using sort of MMM tools like Rockerbox or Triple Whale, but those are not. That's not the same as incrementality. Um,
Mhm.
that's more of an attribution tool. So I think with Meta sort of building this incremental attribution into the platform, into the essence of the platform,
Mhm.
I the story I tell myself is that that's the reason why. The reason why is because the audience, the market has sort of maybe a inherent distrust of the measurement in the platform,
Hmm.
and yet at the same time lacking the skills or resources or knowledge to go and develop like an incrementality testing mindset across the organization. So the folks at Meta are like, oh, we'll just build it in the platform,
Right.
which I think is fantastic. And
Yeah.
it's not, the idea of incrementality testing certainly isn't going away for CTC. I think Meta's on the forefront of this for every other media platform is like, significantly behind. So, for example, if we're going to go run whatever, Reddit, Snapchat, or Pinterest or whatever else, we're still going to, deploy this type of measurement. But I'm really, it's really exciting to see Meta take this first step. And I mentioned this last time we were on the podcast too. It sort of reminds me of years and years ago. I can't remember, maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. We used to do bidding for campaigns like manually. We'd set like the CPC and like set the bid. Like, and that just seems like cave person stuff at this
Sure.
point,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
audiences for that matter. You setting specific interest audiences like is something we haven't done for a bunch of years because broad targeting, it tends
Yeah.
to work better. So yeah.
Well, yeah,
So
and I think we've been saying like that this is at least as much of a shift, if not more so. It's just this is sort of a complete kind of revolution in the way that we approach this type of stuff, right?
I mean, it certainly could be. Yeah.
Well, I just think particularly like because like it's interesting that 5% of people or whatever are already running incrementality, but I think you're right in pointing out that they do probably all use your triple whale rocker boxes, whatever. So Meta's recognizing that there's an entire market for products that only exist because everybody thinks Meta doesn't do a good job of reporting accurately, and you know but they're not using the best tool, which is incrementality. And so Facebook or Meta is seeing this opportunity to step in and say, we're going to fix the thing that's the reason that all of these other tools exist. And then also we're going to make it better using this sort of incrementality framework to think
Yeah.
about it, I guess.
Well, and to be totally clear, Meta, all the ad platforms don't do a haven't have had a blind
Right.
spot with reporting for years. Like the obvious example is like new versus existing customers had there's a different incremental contribution. If you equate it to the Google side, it's brand versus non-brand. Like, but that doesn't mean one is good or bad. Like
Mhm.
they're you can and for sure capture incremental value from your existing customers 100%.
Mhm.
It just needs to be or set differently. So
Mhm.
yeah, and I think it's the same all of these like variables that apply to the incremental contribution of any investment are so dynamic. Like if you think about if you go from spending $50,000 a month to $500,000 a month, that media investment, the incrementality of it's gonna be different. So
Mhm.
the premise of having that signal like in the platform, as opposed to us doing geo holdout studies at some sort of interval and adjusting our targets is really attractive to me.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So, I mean, it sounds like then really like the big takeaways here are around the development of the incrementality tool and the way that kind of the AI portion is going to be used in developing that. And then obviously how creative volume, variety, velocity plays into that. Anything outside of those broad buckets that came out of this that's worth thinking about or mentioning.
Well, so this was like some conversations that we're having with our leadership team, our agency partnership team at Meta that we're excited about. This is all, very very TBD, but here we are. We'll sort of drop some of the hot takes. So um, we're seeking to partner with Meta on some additional data that they have access to that they're calling that the headroom analysis, headroom availability. And essentially it's the diminishing return curve of any particular campaign. So if you spend, $1,000 a day, you're going to get this return. If you spend $5,000 a day, you're going to get a lower return, $10,000 a day, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I think this curve is actually the holy grail of what I'm like. If you wanted to know, like Tony's like doctoral thesis of
Sure.
20 years in media, I'm literally on the verge of creating it, and it comes as a result of having information about this diminishing returns curve as media investment scales. So if you think about it, our growth strategy um, modeling looks at two primary groups: our new customer acquisition model and our retention model. And it looks at the business historically and helps us understand optimum levels of investment for the business as a whole, depending on whether we're seeking a contribution margin outcome or a new customer outcome or somewhere in the middle, which is extremely useful to help us set the sort of, let's call them the rules of the game, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
What this alternatively, or in addition to what this information about these marginal return curves at the campaign level, I believe are going to give us the ability to do is see how much media investment is possible at
Mm.
any given level of return. So, and we're building. We haven't gotten into the podcast about this, but we're building some really exciting stuff into Statless. Um, in the, I don't know if I should say this, the death of the growth map, or
Sure.
the I'm not sure how much we've talked about this, but the growth map is going away. All of the functions of CTC are going to exist in Statless.
Right.
As a part of that, the media team's work is going to exist in Statless. We already have our media team trackers, which track spend by every campaign, by every day, and those are forecasting out into the future now automatically, which is a huge leap forward. The next thing, Tony's doctoral thesis on after 20 years of doing this, is to build in a recommendation engine that helps our media teams actually make allocation decisions, this campaign versus that campaign. Key input to that is going to be this headroom analysis, this diminishing returns curve.
Interesting.
That's a key input from the media side. And then from the growth side of the equation, we have all of our targets set in any given month. We know, or on any given day in any given month, we have a very clear understanding of where we are in relation to that target. So think about a scenario where we're working with a partner, we have a target set, and we're ahead on our spend, but behind on our efficiency, right? So we have an efficiency problem. Now we go over in the media side, and the recommendation engine has all of this context, all of the target context set. Also has information coming in from this headroom analysis to say, hey, this campaign's got a lot of room to scale, right? We should be pushing in here. We should be pulling from over there. And the recommendation engine being fed by the context here, we need to make changes that create more efficiency and slow down the media spend, and also having the context of here's campaigns that have additional headroom. The whole thing.
It's beautiful.
So yeah, I think that was, I think this whole thing feels like it's all coming together. Like,
yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I feel like I know that Steve, who is our data scientist here at Common Thread Collective, he's been doing basically like incremental forecasting models for some time, right? Where it's like at this level of spend, your incremental return is X. At this level of spend, you bump up, by another sort of tranche of spend. It's another $2,000 or something. Maybe a better way to say it is like you're spending $50,000 a month at this return. If you spend $55,000 a month, the incremental return on that $5,000 will be actually maybe you're losing money on it. So even though you're seeing sort of ROAS seems like it's okay overall, if you bump it up to 60, 70 grand, what you're seeing is actually that new spend is actually losing you money. And so that's one way of it sounds like essentially what's happening here is this is a development or an evolution of that type of forecasting. Does that sound correct?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So, and Steve's work is modeling that diminishing return curve at the business level.
Right.
What we think we're going to get access to from Meta is that information at the campaign level.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and for the record, the Google Ads platform has a similar piece of information that we believe we're going to be able to fold into the sort of holy grail here, which is a recommendation engine, an engine that looks at what's happening in all the campaigns over here and what's happening with the business over here, and helps us understand, like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do the other thing. And I want to sort of like just double down on this because Taylor and I talk about this all the time. I think CTC is in the best possible position to thrive in this world that we're moving into, which is really, really all about defining what winning is, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, that's probably got to sound really, really familiar to you, Richard, from all the time you spent with Taylor on the podcast. Really defining what winning looks like. And then with that definition, doing all the actions that lead to that outcome. So if you think about, I think about like some of the tools that like Triple Whale is building. Like Triple Whale has an AI agent, like a media agent that's like a recommendation engine. And it's really cool. But what I haven't seen from them yet is, and when I keep scratching my head, I'm like, how do you make a media recommendation without the broader business context?
Right.
You don't, what do I do? Do I scale this campaign, then pull that one back? Like, why? And that's what we get from all of the work that our growth strategy teams do in partnership with our clients to understand, P&L level impact for a business, that context is the thing that informs the media.
Mhm.
And now if we can get into this headroom analysis, that's another piece of information that we can use to inform the media recommendation. Creative fatigue is another piece of information that we can use to inform the media recommendation. Creative diversity is another programmatic piece of information that we can use to focus energy into actions into the media accounts that will connect to the business outcome that we're seeking.
Yeah. Well, no, no. I mean, it's exciting. I think, like, again, going back to our point about so much of our approach to meta ad buying, especially, has been, like we were saying, a series of kind of MacGyver situations where we're trying to like get to what we need, which is like this P&L level result, by manipulating a platform that is not built to bring you that outcome. It gives you access to a billion people, and you can put your ads on it, whatever. But it's not actually built for that outcome. And now what it just sounds like is that everything is moving in this direction, or at the very least, we're getting the tools finally from Meta to do this at a level we've not been able to do it before. Which, yeah, that's the future feels like it's here. You know what I mean?
It feels really exciting. Like
Yeah.
it's a really cool time to be a performance marketer.
Hmm.
Um, More and more, I feel like the job is becoming less mechanical and more.
Hmm.
At the end of the day, you have like a thing like to sell. Right?
Hmm.
Sell this phone.
Hmm.
At the end of the day, the job of a marketer, a performance marketer, is to take a picture of it and distribute to write some ad copy and then to
Yeah.
distribute that as broadly as possible and to set up to understand the unit economics of how I profit from selling this phone. And I think that's like it's exciting to think about like getting into like as a performance marketer, getting into storytelling and thinking about the moments and how to speak to an audience as opposed to spending tons of time on set this bid this way or set that audience that way. I think the the platforms over the years became really complex and lots of layers to them, and they became really labor intensive to do the workarounds or
Hmm.
whatever it is you want to call it.
Hmm.
And the direction feels like we're headed away from that and headed more towards or back towards, you know, why this CTC hat is really cool.
Hmm.
And, if you work for CTC, you might want to have that.
Yeah, exactly.
Or if you're a CTC fan, I don't know if we sell them, but we probably should.
Oh yeah, absolutely. A whole merch store. There's something there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, the idea is we've talked about this a lot over the years, but like gradually or continuing to move forward towards allowing humans to do what humans are good at and allowing machines to do what machines are good at. It turns out there's just so much stuff that machines are better at than we are. And it feels like they're taking like a pretty big step forward into allowing most of those types of decisions to be machine made, so that what your brain power is now used for is, like you're saying, overall strategy. What do I want to do with this business? What's the result I actually want on a P&L level from my marketing? So that's one or two questions, I guess. And then three, putting your brain towards creative, like thinking about, well, yeah, why would anybody want this thing that I'm selling anyway?
Yeah.
And getting that message out as much as possible.
Yeah. As opposed to trying to hack your way there through some bid or
Exactly.
budget or audience or whatever else. Like you can't. What did Taylor say recently? He said something like you can't hack your way to business growth, like media tactic your way to business growth. Like
Right.
you can't.
Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah. I think that there's definitely been like there's a sense, and I still feel it myself sometimes. It's like the key to success on Meta, and this is especially the case a few years ago. It's less so now, but like, is having the right tactics, like knowing the right hacks. It's some sort of like, basically it's like, I don't know, gamblers tricks to like betting the spread in just the right way or whatever. It's like all that stuff has been maybe important in the past, but it's always papered over the fact that like when you really boil it down, the brands that are winning because they have a great offer and good creative. And a lot of the times I think a brand succeeds because they have great creative and a good offer. But in the past, it's been like, well, because they've been doing these, what tips or what hacks or tricks did their media buyer use? Actually, really, it was just the creative was good, the product was good. But I think we're moving into a world maybe where because those tricks don't really exist anymore or won't, the only thing left is like, wait a minute, do I have a good product? Do I have a good brand? Is my creative telling the story the way it needs to tell it? Is the offer good? Is it connecting? And like really thinking about that stuff, which is what actually ultimately makes the biggest difference anyway.
Yeah. Well, both things have been true forever. We're like, listen, if you ask the media platforms, they'll just tell you like, yeah, sure, just give us all your money and give us more of it. So we're gonna like take it all with a healthy grain of salt. And there's absolutely going to need to be, like, if I think about the recommendation engine that we're building at CTC, like the, there's going to be, let's call them like allocation decisions that happen in media accounts, or maybe even across media accounts, like spend more on this media platform, less on that media platform. So what I'm like really excited about doing is building, and what we're in the process of doing right now is building really, really systematic ways of approaching those questions. So the way that we answer them and the way that we behave is really consistent and really connected to the structured data that we have around the business goal. I'll give you a really, quick, for example, like, actually, let me say it a different way. The other thing that we want to do with this sort of action level at the media account is use all of those actions to back check, right? So let's just say we took, I don't know, 500 actions in a media account over the course of a month. Well, we can ask and answer a really, really easy question on the backside of that, which is, were we able to achieve the outcome, the goal as a result? And sort of connecting all of these dots to like all action in the media account, business outcome.
Yeah.
So, hey, the future's now, Richard.
The future. That's what I was gonna say.
It's just,
I feel like it's all right here. I mean, I was gonna ask. Speaking of which, any sort of like timeline information that came out in terms of, I know obviously Andromeda is already basically rolled out.
yeah.
In terms of any of this other stuff, like any interesting
Well,
timelines?
Well, the incremental attribution setting was released the system-wide the week of the summit. So everyone should see that in their accounts now. And that would be the first thing that I would go and do. The other thing that has been in most accounts we've been seeing in more and more accounts over the last 6 or 8 months is opportunity score. So, but that was also has been released to all accounts. So that's another feature that's worth exploring. And the opportunity score is going to look at things like, event match quality and sort of different signal considerations. And I'm joining a meeting with our agency support team later this week around Meta is working on building sort of an AI recommendation engine into the platform. I think it's part of the opportunity score process, and we're getting an opportunity to talk with them and give some feedback and see what their direction is on that. So yeah, I think those two things are go explore them now, go learn more about what they have to offer, and for sure just get started testing with this incremental attribution thing. I don't know, I can't remember being as excited about like a technical thing in a media platform since, like, conversion-based bidding, really. So go get that.
That's exciting. Yeah, we don't see you excited often, Tony. So I'm stoked. This is big, folks. Cool, man. Well, yeah, it sounds like timeline wise, the future is now. Anything else do you want to hit on this before we wrap up here?
I guess I think it's like, no, I'm going to save it for the next podcast. I want to get on here with you and show off like the tools that we're building into Statless around the media side and how they're benefiting our teams. And I just want to get to share that with more people, but I think it'd be a great follow-up podcast because we can connect some of the dots from, okay, cool. Here's what Meta's doing. And then here's how CTC's toolkit is aligning with that.
Awesome. All right. Well, there's a teaser for you folks. That's coming up. But until next time, I'll plug one more time, the UGC Content Creator Workshop. It's tomorrow. Come join us. But again, if you can't, you can get the replay. I'll have a link in the show notes for you where you can purchase tickets. But anyway, Tony, thanks for joining us. Everybody else also, if you want to work with us, get on the train. CommentThreadCo.com, smash that hire us button. We would love to talk to you. All right, folks, until next time.
See ya.